Hi there. This is Sally's Book Talk, bringing you the best global reads every single day. Today we're exploring the book The Selfish Gene. The author Richard Dawkins is a renowned British biologist, Oxford professor, and fellow of the Royal Society. In 2005, Foreign Policy and Prospect magazines jointly named Dawkins among the world's 100 most influential public intellectuals. This biologist's influence stems from his boldness in proposing revolutionary theories. The selfish gene stands as his magnum opus. Dawkins argues that genes rule our world, with all organisms being mere vehicles for genetic replication. The scientific community erupted in debate. Supporters hailed it as revolutionary biology. Critics dismissed it as fundamentally flawed and socially dangerous. Arguments about selfish genes and denied free will could harm society, they claimed. Professor Wu Guoxing at Peking University called it humanity's despair. Dawkins later suggested the immortal gene might have been a less provocative title. The emotional charge of selfish sparked unnecessary controversy, he admitted. So what's this influential book really about? Why did it make such waves? Today we'll unpack its three core arguments. First, why genes are nature's fundamental units. Second, how genes manipulate organisms for survival. Third, can humans achieve true freedom? Let's begin with part one. Why are genes nature's foundation? They're the basic units of heredity. Dawkins posits that all life is gene-controlled. Genes reign supreme. First, genes created all organisms. Scientists believe 3 to 4 billion years ago, Earth's primordial soup contained only simple chemicals. Through random chemical interactions among these basic substances, primitive organic matter formed. The ocean became filled with such organic compounds. This nutrient-rich environment became known as the primordial soup. Within this primordial soup, organic molecules interacted through chance encounters. Life emerged, a self-replicating molecule appeared, the replicator gene. This replicator operated without consciousness, blindly consuming resources to multiply. Occasional replication errors created new genetic variations. Different genes multiplied and formed distinct genetic groups. Each group competed fiercely for replication opportunities. This sparked ruthless competition over limited resources. Genes discovered protective protein coatings, enhanced survival. Thus emerged the first cellular containers for genetic material. Cooperative gene clusters developed complex cellular functions through trial and error. These biological containers grew increasingly sophisticated, developing feeding and cognitive abilities. Organisms became genetic survival machines for replication. Over eons, successful designs persisted while failures vanished, evolving from simple to complex life forms. Genes not only created life but control all biological processes. Modern organisms dwarf early cells in complexity, yet microscopic genes still govern all biological functions. Genes encode complete blueprints for survival machines, transmitted through reproduction. New organisms develop through predetermined growth patterns, from single cells to complex beings capable of hunting and reproduction. Those survival machines act through genetic programming. Genes themselves lack cognitive ability to evaluate specific behaviors' effectiveness. Genes don't micromanage actions, but encode decision-making protocols during organism development. These genetic codes get hardwired into brains, like pre-installed computer programs activated during decision-making. What appears as conscious thought is essentially genetic programming executing predetermined responses. Effective coding, enabling environmental adaptation, ensures species survival and genetic propagation. Faulty environmental predictions in genetic code lead to extinction through failed adaptations. Natural selection fundamentally represents genes' evolutionary dance with environmental pressures. Survival machines merely execute genetic imperatives without autonomy. Perpetuating genes is life's core purpose. Individual lifespans are finite. Species emerge and vanish through evolutionary timelines. Over geological eras, countless life forms have risen and disappeared without trace. What meaning remains when organisms vanish completely? Dawkins argues only genes achieve immortality through continuous replication. Organisms' lives constitute brief chapters in genes' endless replication saga. Life's ultimate purpose is serving as temporary genetic vessels. Genes transfer to offspring through reproduction, abandoning previous hosts. Post reproduction, genes discard spent organisms like obsolete hardware. Even extinct species transmit genes through evolutionary pathways like hybridization and viral transmission before disappearance. This continuity might span durations beyond human comprehension. At this cosmic scale, all organisms pale compared to genes' immortality. From this analysis, we understand genes create and manipulate organisms for self-perpetuation. Humans and all life forms become genetic puppets without true autonomy. Thus, genes constitute nature's foundation, the primal force driving evolution and biological phenomena. How exactly do genes manipulate survival machines? Dawkins analyzes 5 aspects: altruism, aggression, birth control, generational conflict, and sexual strategies. These form our second section's focus on genetic manipulation mechanisms. First manifestation, biological altruism. Altruism involves benefiting others at apparent personal cost. The selfish gene paradox. How can altruism serve genetic selfishness? Shifting perspective from individual to gene reveals altruism's selfish roots. Multiple organisms carry identical genetic material. Sacrificing one carrier preserves others sharing its genes, ensuring genetic propagation. Genes coldly calculate survival probabilities, discarding individual vessels. Human concepts like love and morality dissolve under this ruthless arithmetic. This mechanical worldview forms the theory's most controversial aspect. Let's temporarily suspend emotional judgments for objective analysis. Examining Dawkins' maternal sacrifice example. Motherly protection stems not from emotion, but successful gene transfer to offspring. Mothers may not reproduce again, while offspring have higher reproductive potential, making new generations genetically more valuable. But thus, genes compel maternal sacrifice to preserve better replication vessels. Variables like maternal age and offspring survival probability modify outcomes, but this hardwired behavior reflects genetic self-interest through evolutionary programming. Natural selection encoded these survival algorithms over millennia. Similar patterns include worker bees defending hives or vampire bats sharing blood meals. Traditional interpretations attributed these to noble motives like sacrifice, but objectively, they enhance genetic propagation, as Dawkins' theory predicts. Second manifestation, restraint and aggression in biological conflicts. Eliminating competitors seems optimal for resource monopolization. Conspecifics sharing identical ecological needs pose maximum threat. Same-sex competitors additionally vie for mating opportunities. Yet lethal combat remains rare outside predator-prey relationships. Animal conflicts often resemble ritualized contests rather than death matches. Established rules govern these displays of threat and bluffing. This strategic restraint reflects genetic calculation, not camaraderie. Eliminating rivals carries hidden costs, outweighing benefits. Energy expenditure and injury risks create unfavorable cost-benefit ratios. Third-party beneficiaries often exploit such conflicts through interference competition. Complex competitive systems discourage reckless aggression through these dynamics. Eliminating one rival might disproportionately benefit others, reducing relative fitness. So should one attack or not? Determining optimal attack timing and strategy requires complex cost-benefit analysis. Competitors gradually establish equilibrium between aggression and restraint. Human societies form alliances through negotiated agreements. Long-term collective interests maintain these social contracts. Some inevitably break agreements for short-term gains, disrupting stability. Repeated negotiations eventually restore new equilibria. Economic price-fixing cartels demonstrate this dynamic clearly. Maintaining high prices benefits all manufacturers initially. Price wars inevitably erupt when defectors offer discounts. Smaller competitors get eliminated through attrition. Survivors reform cartels at new equilibrium points. This cyclical pattern mirrors biological conflict resolution mechanisms. Third manifestation, controlled reproduction strategies. Maximizing offspring numbers seems ideal for genetic propagation. Yet organisms naturally regulate birth rates to optimal levels. Overpopulation strains parental resources, reducing survival rates. This counterintuitively decreases successful gene transmission. Evolution optimizes between quantity and quality of offspring. Environmental changes trigger adaptive reproductive adjustments. Harsh measures include abandoning weak offspring or culling litters. Population-level birth control maintains ecological balance. Mouse population experiments demonstrate natural carrying capacity limits. This unconscious population control maintains resource availability for genetic transmission. Some species exploit this mechanism to enhance their genetic advantage. European starlings assess population density through vocalizations to determine clutch sizes. During breeding season, they amplify calls to create false population density impressions. This acoustic deception convinces rivals to reduce reproduction, minimizing competition. Fourth manifestation, intergenerational conflict in parental care strategies. While parent-child interests align genetically, resource allocation creates tension. Parents face finite resources, food, energy, risk tolerance, requiring strategic investment. Selective nurturing prioritizes offspring with highest survival or reproductive potential. Offspring evolutionarily programmed to demand disproportionate resources. Development of manipulative strategies compensates for offspring's physical disadvantage. Deception tactics include exaggerated hunger displays in nestlings. Famed distress hijacks parental feeding routines meant for siblings. More aggressive strategies involve ecological blackmail. Some nestlings attract predators to extort parental feeding. The ultimate evolutionary arms race manifests in brood parasitism. Cuckoo hatchlings eliminate competition by ejecting host eggs. This ruthless elimination ensures monopolization of parental resources. Such adaptations disrupt parental reproductive strategies while serving genetic imperatives. Parents counter with strategies like sequential feeding based on size rather than vocal demands. This evolutionary arms race spares only the last born from resource competition. Final offspring receive undivided resources as parental investment concludes. Youngest siblings often become primary beneficiaries of residual parental resources. Human maternal favoritism toward youngest children reflects this biological imperative. Fifth manifestation, sexual conflict in reproductive strategies. Each parent seeks to maximize genetic returns while minimizing personal investment. Fundamental asymmetry exists. Males produce abundant sperm with minimal commitment. Females bear costly eggs and extended gestation or nurturing periods. This imbalance drives male promiscuity and female counter strategies. Female countermeasures include selective mate choice based on genetic quality. The single quote Sun hypothesis explains preference for showy male traits in species like birds of paradise. Female birds of paradise solely raise offspring while selecting elaborately plumed mates. Elaborate plumage serves as honest signal of genetic fitness in mate selection. Offspring inherit these advantageous traits, enhancing future reproductive success. This creates self-reinforcing evolutionary cycles of sexual selection. The second strategy, selective partnership formation through courtship rituals. Females impose rigorous mate selection criteria requiring demonstrated commitment. Males must prove loyalty through nest building and resource provisioning before mating. Cooper swans exemplify this strategy with extended courtship verification processes. Their mating rituals involve months-long aquatic displays and vocal exchanges. Impatient males failing sustained courtship efforts remain unmated. Successful suitors collaborate extensively in nest construction pre-mating. Females delay reproduction until satisfactory nest completion. This investment ensures remarkable swan pair fidelity post-mating. Swans maintain lifelong monogamy, often celibate after partner loss. Human relationship norms reflect similar evolutionary programming. Cultural practices like male courtship initiatives and marital homeownership requirements, monogamous social structures, and fidelity expectations mirror biological strategies. Gene manipulation manifests through complex biological and social mechanisms. Evolutionary conflicts permeate existence, from cellular interactions to family dynamics. These genetic imperatives shape our perceived reality and social constructs. Can humanity transcend genetic determinism to achieve true autonomy? Our third section examines possibilities for liberation from genetic control. Affirmative evidence emerges in three developmental domains. First, breakthrough. Scientific interventions counteracting genetic mortality programming. Genes discard organisms' post-reproductive utility through senescence mechanisms. Modern medicine challenges this disposable survival machine paradigm. Biogerontology research targets cellular aging processes for intervention. At this stage, genetic programming initiates senescence to free resources for newer genetic vessels. Would genes preserve organisms failing reproduction tasks? That's the trillion-dollar question. Scientists propose two counter-strategies against genetic determinism. First approach: mandate delayed reproduction to trick genetic longevity mechanisms. Gradually raising reproductive age thresholds could theoretically extend lifespan. While speculative, alternative methods show greater practical potential. And identifying youth-associated biomarkers could enable genetic deception therapies. Synthetic biomarker supplementation might reset genetic aging algorithms. Second frontier: conscious rebellion against genetic imperatives. Human cognition enables partial transcendence of biological programming. The child-free movement exemplifies conscious rejection of reproductive drives. Inverse correlation between education levels and birth rates defies genetic objectives. Genetic commands for sustenance and rest meet conscious resistance daily. Dietary restrictions and sleep deprivation represent autonomous choice over instinct. These behaviors demonstrate growing human mastery over biological imperatives. Perhaps someday we'll break free from genetic control and achieve true behavioral autonomy. Third frontier: cultural education, combating genetic tyranny through conscious evolution. Genetic programming creates economic, rational actors driven by self-interest. Can we realistically build a society based on generosity and altruism under these constraints? Dawkins suggests education enables awareness of our biological programming's selfish tendencies. This awareness allows conscious resistance against extreme selfish behaviors. Education fosters long-term collective thinking and cultivates genuine altruism beyond genetic imperatives. This unprecedented altruism represents humanity's evolutionary breakthrough. We genetic survival machines possess unique capacity to rebel against our creators. Three liberation paths: scientific longevity, conscious willpower, and cultural mimetic evolution. This concludes our exploration of the selfish gene. Key takeaway: genes constitute nature's foundational architects and puppet masters. Humans remain genetic marionettes, but conscious ones. We demonstrated genetic manipulation through 5 behavioral paradigms. Humanity's emancipation prospects lie in 3 developmental frontiers. While progress exists, true liberation remains distant yet attainable. Our rebellious spirit distinguishes humanity as nature's self-aware wonder. This concludes our analysis of the selfish gene. Thank you for listening. Keynotes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.